Hello, my name is Daniel Stillwell and I'm the editor of the IFTA e-newsletter. We are here in lovely Japan for the IFTA conference, and we have with us today Sar Surmick. So we're going to find out a little bit about you and your work. So first of all, thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We have viewers and readers from all over the world, and they do therapy in all sorts of different ways. So what does it look, what mental health practitioner do you identify as?
Yeah.
And what does that look like where you work?
I'm an LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapist in Seattle, Washington. And I split my time probably 2/3 as a professor, teaching a master's level program, and about a third split between doing outside education and private practice, where I specialize in identity and consensual non-monogamy.
Okay, all right. Seattle is in the US, for those of you who may not know that. You are here not just to connect and engage with the global systemic population, but also to present.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the presentation you have.
So I'm actually doing two.
Okay.
The first one I'm doing is on managing difference through an identity lens.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about managing both our intrinsic identity, the identity we hold inside of ourselves, and contrasting that with extrinsic identification, where we project our concept of another person onto them, and looking at the lens of difference between, like, what if we're wrong? Like, how do we manage when we're wrong with someone else? How do we repair that? And what happens when we don't?
Okay, so that's one of them.
That's one of them.
All right.
The other one is how to work with the parents of trans youth.
Gotcha.
Which is a little more self-explanatory.
Sure. Well, I'm taking a shot in the dark, but they definitely overlap in
definitely
the clinical world.
Yeah, because especially when working with parents of trans youth, even the ones that are really accepting and want to be affirming of their child, they often don't know how. And while the child is going through an identity process, the parent also goes through an identity process at the same time. And that can get very emotionally and psychologically complex.
Absolutely. And that idea of intrinsic, extrinsic, the projection piece, like I also work with trans people from time to time, and one thing that I often hear is the sense of it being objectified at all times. And whether it's my 14-year-old client trying to figure out which pronouns they're trying to use, or my 33-year-old client with a mental disability who's trying to figure out what kind of bra they want to use.
Right.
Any of those types of things are, their own struggle, and then you have these people, often supportive people, who are putting their own ideas on them.
Right, and they're trying to help, but they're not. One of the things I want to talk about, and one of the reasons why I like talking about the subject, is to help people engage in a more affirming way with trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming populations.
Right. Those of the audience may not always be aware of the diversity. It's not just a binary that people switch back and forth from.
Very much well. Yeah. So, for example, I am non-binary trans femme, is my gender identity. And yeah, some people have a really difficult time just understanding that our concept of male, female, masculine, feminine is very wibbly wobbly.
Yes.
And that it's not a either or button or checkbox. It's not even one spectrum, it's multiple spectrum.
Right. Well, then let me ask a question that may hit both of the presentations.
Yeah.
How do you help let's do it with the parents.
Yeah.
How do you help people who are trying to care for others without othering them?
I think I understand. So if I understand correctly, the biggest space is when we work with parents is to give them a safe and contained space
Mm-hmm.
where they can have all the feelings and all the questions and all of the freakouts and all of the worry and all that with me and not
With their child.
with their child.
Right, right.
And so the lack of projection or the affirmation of the youth's identity, that comes in time.
Mm.
But it takes, even parents I find who are like really want to do it, it still takes them a good 6 to 12 months to get there.
Oh,
and parents who are less open, less able, they take even longer.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly they just have to, it's about getting to know their child again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The youth has often thought about this for a very
Right.
long time.
Right.
And the parents are usually just finding out about it
Mm-hmm.
for the first time. And of course, the impatience of youth and wanting everything to change and wanting
Mm-hmm.
everything to be now. And so we work with both sides to be able to hold the complexity of the feeling while the family system first destabilizes and then hopefully restabilizes into a more adaptive pattern.
And that projecting, so often when I work with parents, they put their own upbringings onto their children.
Right. And their own concept of who their child is supposed to be.
Right.
You know, even when as parents we try like, oh no, I want my child to be whoever they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you can only see through the lens that you have.
Right.
And sometimes reorienting that lens takes time.
I think about the CAST model of identity when it comes to sexual orientation, and people kind of play with it in other developmental dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about some of those stages for partners, for parents, for grandparents,
Yeah.
has also been very normalizing and validating for some of those clients, as well as giving a potential roadmap that this won't be one and done.
Right.
This is both,
It's a long, complex.
it's empowerment and it's grief and it's failure and it's like reorientation, I think is a great word for a lot of that.
Yeah. And if we existed in a bubble,
Mm-hmm.
it would be fairly easy. But both the parents and the child exist in a much larger social system,
Right.
which often creates its own impact, its own influence, its own direction
Okay.
and issues.
This is an international audience.
Yes.
How do you see this being helpful for people outside the Seattle context?
I think there's a couple of things there. One is just being able to show up and have the conversation, because we know that transness exists in other countries.
Of course.
It's much more a question of the level of social acceptance
Mm-hmm.
in those countries, and that runs a pretty wide gambit.
Mm-hmm.
From, say, Northern Europe, where it's very open and very accepted, to countries in Africa where you can be killed,
Mm-hmm.
executed for it. Here in Japan, there's really no structure around transness.
Mm-hmm.
It exists, but they haven't quite figured out how to socially
Mm-hmm.
work with it. And so I think just being able to have the conversation around identity and to open the conversation into a more systemic identity space so that people aren't just thinking either or, this or that.
Right.
Just begins to open up this space where therapists who are working with clients who have any number of identities and identity conflicts within their family systems can start to expand that lens for themselves, for
Mm-hmm.
the therapist. And then, of course, then we can psychoeducate, we can work with, we can help to expand our client's lens so that they can manage what is a very difficult and trying
Absolutely.
time.
Well, this is very good work, and it's certainly not going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
This is for those of you who do not work with this population. I would argue that you do, and you just don't know it. So hopefully this
Or you
kind
will
of
be
stuff,
soon.
or you will be soon.
Or you will be soon.
So hopefully this is enlightening and piquing some interest for people. Last question. We like to humanize the presenters and the writers and the authors and everything. Tell us a little bit more about you, either professionally or personally.
I think one of the things to know about me professionally, so I speak, I write, like so many of us, we sort of do all the things. But I think one of the things to know about me is that I am a complexifier.
Oh.
There are people in the world who take really difficult and big ideas and condense them down into easy to understand things. I see my role and the way my brain works as taking things that people think are easy to understand and blowing them up into a 3-book series.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so I love the space of digging into the odd, the unusual, the like, I thought this was simple, and figuring out both how it is not simple, but then also a way to work with it in its complexity and its variation and its uniqueness.
So good. That's an excellent understanding of family systems as well. Just the norms that we have about everything. Wow, that's a great way to find richness.
Yeah, so I think professionally, if you wanted to know something about me interesting, that is probably one of the most interesting things.
Pretty cool, pretty cool. Well, thank you, Sar, for being here. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll have a good conference.
I hope so too. I'm looking forward to it.